Okay, so let's dive right in. The moment this life ends, a whole other journey kicks off immediately. Today, we're going to walk through one of the most consequential descriptions of the afterlife from Islamic tradition. We'll look at the soul's departure, the trial that's waiting in the grave, and most importantly, what it all tells us about the life we're living right now. And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This isn't about some far-off, distant future. According to these teachings, the next phase begins the very second this one is over, the moment those footsteps of the mourners fade away and you are truly, completely alone. So how does this journey start? Well, Islamic tradition, especially in a very detailed prophetic narration, paints two incredibly different pictures of how the soul leaves the body. And the path it takes? It depends entirely on the kind of life that person lived. Now, what's so striking here is the contrast. We're not talking about a subtle difference. It is a completely opposite experience, and it's described with really intense physical and sensory details. And this just perfectly illustrates those two paths. For the believer, it's said that angels with faces as bright as the sun appear, and the soul is gently coaxed out, literally flowing out like water. It's then wrapped in a heavenly perfume. But for the disbeliever, angels with dark, grim faces show up, and the soul is violently ripped from the body. The prophet described it like a skewer being ripped through wet wool. And it brings with it this just awful stench. So once the soul has been taken up and then returned to the body inside the grave, the next stage begins. And it's not some peaceful, quiet rest. It's immediate, it's physical, and it is very, very reactive. You know, this is such a haunting detail from the source material. It suggests that consciousness continues. You're aware that you've been left behind. You can hear the last sounds of your world just fading away. And in that total silence, the grave itself responds. For the believer, the grave is said to expand, becoming this beautiful, spacious garden from paradise. But for the disbeliever, it's the opposite. It constricts, crushing the body with so much force that the ribs actually interlock. It becomes a pit from hellfire. And this is all before the real trial even gets started. And here's a really crucial point. This experience is universal. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was one of the most righteous and beloved companions. I mean, it's said that the very throne of God shook at his death. That's how revered he was. But even he experienced this squeeze. The lesson here is that this first embrace of the earth is inescapable for everyone. It's a final, physical reminder that we've returned to where we came from. And then they arrive. Two angels, Munkar and Nakir. They're described as being pretty fearsome, with voices like thunder. They've come to conduct the trial. It's a test with just 3 questions. But these 3 questions will determine your state all the way until the day of resurrection. The first question: who is your Lord? Now, this isn't about just knowing a name. It's really asking, who did you actually worship? Who did you obey? What was the true center of your life? The second question follows right on its heels. What is your religion? And again, this goes way beyond a label you might put on a census form. It's asking about your deen, your entire way of life, your moral compass, the path you really truly followed. And finally, the third question: who is the prophet? Or, in other words, what's your take on this man who was sent to you? Was he a guide you actually followed? Or was he just some figure from history? And this is the absolute core of it all. Your ability to answer has zero to do with memorization. A believer who's given firmness by God will answer clearly, without hesitation. But the person who lived a life of doubt or just went through the motions, they'll only be able to stammer, I don't know. I heard people saying something, so I just said it too. The answers, you see, come straight from the heart, not from your head. So what happens after the Q&A? Well, the results are immediate. The answers you give unlock a preview of your final destination, and they set the stage for your entire experience until the final day of judgment. This in-between state is called the barzakh. It's really important to understand this is not a waiting room, and it's not some kind of soul sleep. As the source texts make clear, it is a conscious, active experience. The soul can actually perceive the breezes and smells of paradise, or the heat and harsh winds of hellfire. And during this time, you're not alone. A figure appears. For the believer, it's a beautiful companion who introduces themselves saying, "I am your good deeds." This is the literal embodiment of every prayer, every act of kindness, every bit of charity. But for the disbeliever, a terrifying figure appears and says, I am your evil deeds. Your life's work, well, it becomes your constant companion.
So, what's the big takeaway here? I mean, why are all these details so important? Well, the sources present this stuff not to paralyze us with fear, but to give us this profound sense of clarity and urgency about how we're living our lives today.
Just think about it for a second. Your entire life, your career, your status, how much money you made, your reputation, all of it gets stripped away. And everything gets distilled down to your ability to answer just these 3 questions. It completely reorients your entire perspective on what's actually important. So the natural question is, how do you prepare? Well, the sources do highlight several actions that are said to act as protectors in the grave. And as you can see, they range from specific acts of worship, like reciting a chapter of the Quran called Surah al-Mulk, to martyrdom. But the foundation, the thing that's always emphasized, is a life of sincere, consistent good deeds and prayer. And this is really the ultimate call to action. The Prophet advised his followers to remember death often. Not to be morbid or depressed, but because remembering the end has a radical way of changing how you live the beginning and the middle. It forces you to live with purpose. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. Those footsteps will fade. The silence will fall. The angels will arrive. And in that moment, the only thing that's going to matter is the life you lived. The answers won't come from what you knew. They'll come from who you were.